Photo Equipment Part 6, Accessories and Other Stuff, a presentation for the advisor. Other stuff. This is the sixth and last in the equipment series of videos. What we will cover: straps, supports, monopod and tripod, flash, camera bag, lens filters, hoods and caps, cleaning kits, batteries and battery management, other stuff, and a summary. Straps. Why? The camera comes with a strap. A longer strap allows for cross-body carry. The stock strap is too short for a cross-body carry. The cross-body carry eliminates pressure on the back of the neck, especially with a heavy camera and lens. One end of the strap could be attached to the long lens, making it easier and safer to carry. Note: some of these straps come with proprietary connectors to attach the camera to the strap. When you get one of these straps, you are buying into that strap's system of connectors. Example: Peak Design and Optech straps are not interconnectable. If you have a Peak Design strap, you cannot connect it to an Optech anchor on the camera. You need to have a Peak Design anchor on the camera. Same thing with Optech. Supports: monopod and tripod. Monopod. Pros: good for supporting the weight of a heavy camera and lens. Fairly compact and easy to carry. Cons: it restricts your arc of movement. And it only supports the camera in the vertical axis. There is no stability in the forward and back and left and right axis. So if you're in the wind will still blow you around. Tripods. Pros: good when you need stability in all axes. Up, down, left, right, front, back. Good in the wind where the monopod does not work. Cons: tripods are bulky to carry, especially the big ones. Good tripods are not inexpensive. There are many different types of heads, and there is no one best head. Selecting a tripod head can be confusing. Monopod and tripod usage issues. Ambient temperature. Those of you in hot or cold climates should consider a carbon fiber versus aluminum. Unless you have a thermal sleeve over the aluminum, it could or will get too hot to handle or so cold that it just sucks the heat out of your hands. Gloves are recommended. You should mount the camera and lens at the balance point of the assembled camera and lens. The tripod foot of a lens is usually at or near the balance point. However, not all lenses have a tripod foot. A heavy unbalanced load is difficult for the tripod to hold in position. The camera may drift down. And what I mean by that is, if you point the camera horizontally, after a little while, the camera will be drifting down and pointing to the ground instead of your subject. This is because the load is up front and not balanced. Mounting the camera on the tripod with a heavy lens sticking forward puts a lot of strain on the lens mount and the tripod socket. You can get away with this with a light lens, but not with a long, heavy lens. Camera and tripod mount. This is a clamp and rail assembly that sits between the camera and the tripod or monopod. The clamp attaches to the top of the tripod or monopod, and the rail attaches to the camera or the tripod foot of the lens. The clamp is faster and easier and safer to use than the tripod screw. The industry standard is the Arca Swiss or AS system. Some tripods now come with an AS clamp and rail. Tripod tip: the quick release clamp and plate. Some tripods have a quick release clamp, or a quick release clamp can be attached to the tripod. Problem: the QR plate is often forgotten and left on the camera by the student, and the QR plate goes home with the student's camera. A tripod without the QR plate is useless. Is the QR plate an industry standard such as Arca Swiss or easily available such as Manfrotto? Problem: if the QR plate is proprietary and hard or impossible to find, if you lose the QR plate, the tripod is now useless. We had a teacher who had a tripod with a missing QR plate. We could not find a replacement plate. That tripod sat in the corner of the room because the teacher could not bear to throw it in the dumpster. Flash. An external flash would be used when you need more light than the pop-up flash will provide, or when you want the light to come from a different direction. Pop-up flash is only aimed forward. If you want it to go in a different direction, you'll need an external flash. Issues. Most non-pro cameras will have a pop-up flash. So do you need an external flash? How many instances do you need an external flash? Is it worth buying a flash to use only once a year? Maybe. A flash is a delicate piece of gear. If you bang the flash against the wall, not only could you damage the flash, but you could tear the hot shoe off the top of the camera, damaging the camera. Recommendation: for flash, OEM or OEM compatible. And you want a TTL compatible flash. Don't get a manual or an automatic. Just make it easy for the students. OEM compatible, and TTL compatible. Batteries. You want 2 sets, a primary and a backup. Optional but recommended: flash bracket and sync cord, and spare sync cords. The cords have been and are a common point of failure because the cords flex. Bags to carry and protect the camera and lens from going to and from the event or game. A bare camera in the trunk of a car is just asking to be damaged. To carry multiple pieces of gear together and protected. The individual items are separated and protected, unlike carrying the gear just dumped into the school pack. The Amazon large basic bag works fine and is economical. Filters. Protective filter. Every lens should have a protective filter. Primary purpose is to keep fingerprints and grease off the front element of the lens. It is easier to clean a filter than the front element, and if you cannot clean the filter, just replace it. Polarizing filter. Useful when you're shooting at the pool, especially towards the sun. However, you have to know how to use it to make it effective. If you don't know how to use a polarizing filter, don't bother with it. Lens hood. Every lens should have a lens hood. Again, every lens should have a lens hood. It helps to shield the lens from the sun, just like the visor on a cap. But very importantly, it helps to keep fingers away from the front of the lens, and thus helps to keep the filter or front element clean. Next, it acts like a bumper. If you hit something like a wall, the hood hits first, and hopefully takes most of the impact, saving the lens. Much cheaper to buy a replacement $30 hood than a $1,000 lens. Get spare hoods, especially for your standard lens, as the hoods will get lost or broken. Third-party hoods that fit are more cost-effective than OEM hoods. Now, I mentioned that fits because sometimes you'll buy a third-party hood and it doesn't fit, and you end up having to shave the hood to try and make it fit. That can be a lot of work. Unfortunately, some hoods are OEM only and expensive. So instead of buying a $10 generic hood, you're now buying a $50 OEM hood. But if you have no other choice, you have to get the OEM hood. Lens caps. Lens caps are considered consumable items. they will get lost. I do not recommend using something called a cap keeper. That puts a string between the cap and an elastic band on the lens. So in theory, you don't lose the cap. So it's a good idea in theory, but in practice, I find it unusable. When you are shooting, the cap dangling from the lens just gets in the way and is bothersome. Then you end up taking the cap off the lens anyway. Get multi-packs of inexpensive generic caps for the lens that you have and replace the caps as they get lost. Because the caps will get lost, don't bother spending extra money on expensive OEM caps. Camera and lens cleaning kits. Microfiber cloth to wipe down the gear. Microfiber lens cleaning cloth to clean the glass elements and filter. These should always be kept in a Ziploc bag to prevent contamination. And don't use the lens cleaning cloth to wipe the outside of the camera. That's why you have another cloth to do the outside. The lens cleaning cloth should just be used to clean the lens, the glass of the lens, not the outside of the lens. You want a large blower, pump blower, not canned air. Problem is canned air is there is a propellant in there, and if you use it wrong, that propellant may get pushed onto the lens, which then becomes a bother to try and clean off. And lens cleaning fluid. Batteries. This is a whole section. Tip: batteries should be color-coded to the camera to reduce the chance of putting the wrong battery into the camera. Orange battery into orange camera. Green battery into the green camera. Next tip: put the color dot on the same side of the battery as the color dot on the camera battery door, as in the pictures below. This tells the user which way to install the battery. You put the battery so the orange dot is on the left, same as the door, where the orange dot is on the left. The issue is rectangular batteries are easy to install the wrong way. Batteries that have a particular shape can't be reversed as easily. They can if the students try, but they'll damage the camera doing it. Next, batteries should be numbered, as in the picture bottom right. Numbering the battery helps you keep track of a failing battery. Battery life. Battery life depends on specific battery, camera, lens combination, and the number of shots taken. Stock battery should last at least a full game, probably 2 games. If you are shooting more than 1 game, or shooting a long event, or using the flash, or handing off the camera to another photographer, you may need a second battery. Spare batteries. Get spare batteries for at least half of your cameras, if not all. Any unique camera battery should have a spare. Battery problems. If a battery does not last a full game, it needs to be checked and possibly replaced. First, check that the battery is fully charged. There have been instances where a partially charged or uncharged battery was used, with the resulting short time before it goes empty. And then the students start saying, hey, the battery's bad. No, that was just because you didn't fully charge the battery. Keep track of the failing batteries. This is why you number the battery. If battery number 3 seems to be always running short, maybe that battery's in trouble and needs to be replaced. Replace the battery. If the runtime is consistently less than a full game, or significantly less than a new battery. So if your battery is just running out at halftime, consistently, even though you're fully charged, maybe it's time to replace the battery. If the battery has swollen and is tight to insert or removed from the camera, get rid of the battery and replace it. The danger here is if the battery swells more, it could get stuck in the camera, and that could be an expensive repair to remove swollen battery. Battery charging, lessons learned. If the charger is on a power strip, check that the power strip is on. The charging light on some chargers turn off when the battery is charged. Here the problem is, if the battery charger is still charging and somebody knocks the battery power strip off, the charger will turn off. So you look at the charger and you say, hey, light's off, battery must be fully charged. No, the charger light is off because somebody killed the power switch. So you have a partially charged battery, not a fully charged battery. So you do need to check that the power switch is on. On some cases, it might be easier just to get a power switch without a switch. That way, there is no chance for it being turned off. If you have more than one camera brand and model, make sure that you put the battery into the correct charger. Tip, color code the camera, batteries, and chargers. Orange battery for the orange camera into the orange charger. Green battery for the green camera into the green charger. Next, if the battery is not seated properly into the charger, it will not charge. You can't just lay the battery onto the charger. You've got to put the battery into the charger and seat it. If the battery starts to swell and gets tight in the camera, get rid of the battery and replace it. Or the next time, the battery may get stuck in the camera, and that will be an expensive repair bill. Mixing OEM and third-party batteries and chargers. If you get a third-party battery for your camera, you need to verify that your OEM batteries will charge in the third-party charger and that your third-party battery will charge in your OEM charger. We had an instance where a Canon battery would not charge in the third-party charger and the third-party battery would not charge in the Canon charger. Students would be putting the third-party battery into the Canon charger, and it just sat there, uncharged. Unless and until you verify charging, I do not recommend mixing OEM and third-party batteries. The batteries will eventually get mixed up and end up not being charged. Alternate battery method. In one class, rather than using a power bar with all the chargers on it, cameras are stored in camera bags, not loose in a cabinet. A battery is kept in the camera, and there is a charger and spare battery in the pocket of each camera bag. This eliminates forgetting to take a battery to the shoot. As I said, with the power bar, you grab your camera, and you have to also grab a battery off the charger. Battery in the bag means you just grab the bag. Everything is there. Now, the student is responsible for charging the battery at home before returning the camera to the teacher. That way, the camera is immediately usable by another student. Other stuff. Large plastic bag to put the gear into if and when it rains. A couple plastic bags should be put into each camera bag, so it's always there. Summary. There are a lot of other gear that you need besides the camera and lens. Straps, support, bag, flash, filter, lens hood, lens caps, and more. Battery management is important. Labeling the battery, tracking, problems, charging, and more. The end. Please like and subscribe.